Hello and welcome to Hank Games Without Hank. My name is John Green. I'm the manager of the Swoodilypoopers, currently in 4th, and as you can see, it is raining in England. That's shocking, but because it is very cold, that rain is coming down as snow. Today we are starting, not necessarily our best team, to be perfectly upfront with you. The Capital One Cup quarterfinals are coming up. That's our next game, and we're playing Tottenham. I'm pretty intimidated by the prospect of playing Tottenham. So Leroy Williamson and John Green are both on the bench today. Andy Rooney and Collins starting up front. I'm giving them another chance. They've gotten many chances, and they haven't really produced yet. But I'm giving them another chance. I almost started Love Good Bedwell, but in the end I decided that I couldn't do it just because Green Eggs and Foderingham, I feel like he needs to be zoned in for Tottenham, and if he gets a bunch of time off, I feel like that's not going to be good for him. Today I'm going to talk about settings and why I set my books where I did, and why I think I find the ways. Really Green Eggs and Foderingham? That should really make the Swindon highlight reel. Why I set my books where I do and not other places. You know, sometimes it is a function of my life. I like to set books in places I know well because it's cliche to say that the setting should be a character in your story, and I think in general it's a bit overplayed for sort of like setting-heavy writers. Oh, that could have been a goal, but it wasn't. To be like, oh, you know, like setting is such a huge part of my work and blah, 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 blah. But it is an important part of my work nonetheless. It's something that really interests me, the way that places sort of like define us and our understandings of ourselves and stuff. And so when I was writing Looking for Alaska, I wanted it to set it in Birmingham because the boarding school that I went to was near Birmingham, and also because I kind of wanted to. So that was the obvious reason. The less obvious reason was that I really wanted to write about what I saw as like the new South. You know, I wanted to be a Southern writer who was writing about the South as I saw it, where it was still still distinct in important ways from from the North, and still, you know, culturally its own thing, but not quite to the extent that you might think, judging from the way like country music talks about the South, for instance. We're getting some good shots in, but everything's coming to nothing. And so I wanted to kind of try to capture that side of it, the South that I saw when I was growing up, and not necessarily the South that everyone hears about in country music, or the whole like Faulkner's South of being constantly obsessed with your past and everything. So that was a big part of it, to be honest with you. And at the time, I had this idea, which in retrospect is extremely embarrassing, that I was going to write 13 novels in my career, and that they would be set in each of the 13 states of the former Confederacy. Now, I know what you're thinking. John, that means that you would have had to eventually write a book set in Texas. I know, right? Just kidding, Texans, but seriously. But no, I'm just kidding. But seriously. I don't know why I thought that was such a good idea, but I really did. And so my second novel is set in Tennessee, partly because that's where my grandparents are from, and I know that area of Tennessee well, and I wanted to write about the gaping difference between rural America and urban America. Here are these two kids, one of them a Muslim, hold on. Okay, it's just my mom. Sorry, freak out because I'm waiting for I'm scared about labor. Hold on. Hold on, Mom. I'll call you back. Okay. Yeah. So I really sorry. Now I'm freaked out because I thought that was it. I thought that was the labor call, and I was going to have to leave the Swoodilypoopers and go to the hospital. I set it in Tennessee partly because of my 13 novels of the Confederacy idea, and partly because I knew it well, and I wanted to draw the distinction between what it's like to live in Chicago versus what it's like to live in a really small town in Tennessee, where you don't necessarily have it. You know, I'm not saying that people don't have like opportunities in rural America, but the opportunities are very different, and you have to. I think on some level you do have to kind of work harder. You do. let's put it this way. I always want to work with people who have made, who like started out in a small town, or who are the first people from their generation to go to college or whatever it is. Like I always want to work with those people because I always think like those people are going to be like hardworking and relatively honest and stuff. I just have a bias toward them. So I wanted to write about that, the way that the urban and rural interact with each other in the United States, the way that people in the city romanticize people in the country, and also the way that the people in the country can sort of romanticize the rural myth of America and sort of like buy their own crap, for lack of a better phrase. So that's why I set Catherine's there. Oh, we just need a better finish. And then Paper Towns, there was a third state in the Confederacy, the state of Florida, which is also the state that I grew up in. So it's a place that I was really interested in. I grew up in Orlando, so I am deeply from there, like it is probably more than any other place, the place that is in my DNA from having been a kid there and, like having had as a kid such strong opinions about Orlando, this weird transient town that people visit but don't actually live in, that people are always flying into but never staying at, and I always felt the tension of being a kid who did live there. You feel almost it's a very strange feeling to live. Like the Orlando airport when I was a kid, I remember they like the monorail used to say, "We hope you enjoy your visit," because it was so unlikely that someone could actually live there that they didn't even bother to say, welcome home, or they just said like, please enjoy your time at Disney World. And so I wanted to set a book there, particularly Paper Towns, because it's a story about that urge to leave, that many of us feel when we're in high school. Terrible pass. That urge to get out, to be free from the constraints of the social order. And it is a weird thing to look up every day and see all these people getting out of this town that you want to get out of, and feeling like you can't get out of it. And I think that's a lot of what motivates Margot and moves her and makes her want to be out so much. And also I wanted to write about the way that we abandon spaces, and Orlando is a great town for that because it is a place that's constantly in a state of abandonment based on whatever is or is not the cool theme park of the moment. So that was why Orlando. But again, that's another place that I knew well, so it was easy for me to make that decision. Like I didn't have to sort of, and I like writing about places I know because I just feel very comfortable with it. When it came time, and Will Grayson is set in Chicago, again, a city I've lived in. Oh, get it! Oh, for the love of everything holy! Collins! You're wide open. Probably could have settled. No, I don't think I did have time to settle. I think I made the right decision. Just so frustrating. I hate to say that he's gone in the January transfer window, but I mean, have you guys seen any results that you found at all encouraging? Because I haven't. I just haven't. I'm going to level with you. I haven't seen it from him. And I think Andy Rooney is frustrated having to play with him because he feels like, he can't get it done. And so they're both just having really tough seasons. Oh, and that was a bad giveaway. So it's pretty, it's difficult time for the Swoodilypoopers at the moment. I mean, admittedly, we aren't playing our best team because we're trying to get ready for the big Capital One Cup, but still. So I mean, we set Will Grayson in Chicago because we wanted to write about, a place with a place where it wouldn't be impossible for two kids with relatively unusual names to meet, and we also wanted to write about kind of like the distance of suburbs, like the way that living in two different suburbs really is in many ways like living in two different states or whatever. There's such a distance culturally, in terms of economic, socioeconomic status, all that stuff. Like it's just so different to live in Schaumburg versus Evanston. Oh God, run! Run, run, run. Yes. And then when it came time to write The Fault in Our Stars, that was the first time I set a book in a city, or at least partly in a city I didn't know very well. Skullbone, what is it called in the book? Gutshot. Sorry, I always call things by their real names. Gutshot in Catherine's is based on a town called Skullbone, Tennessee, where my grandmother's from, and I knew it fairly well, but I fictionalized it a ton. But writing about Amsterdam was very different because when I wrote almost all of that, I'd spent maybe 10 or 12 days in Amsterdam, so not that much time at all. That was a place that I didn't know as well or as deeply and didn't have as. But, I was also writing about kids who didn't know it well and who had their own romanticized ideas about Amsterdam, and that's part of what I wanted to write about. So it made sense for the topic of the book. It looks like it's going to be a standard Swoodilypooper 0-0 draw. But Indianapolis, I thought, was the perfect kind of cohort to Amsterdam because Indianapolis is also a canal city. It's also a place that that sort of was built on and thrived on industry, but it's very, very, very different, of course, as well. Get it? Oh, right at the death it could have been, but instead it wasn't, and it's a standard Swoodilypooper 0-0 draw. The frustration is palpable. Thank you for watching. Best wishes.